Mr. President, I rise today on behalf of nearly 25,000 workers and retirees in Wisconsin who have paid into the Central States Pension Fund. More than 4 years ago, thousands of Wisconsinites started receiving letters in the mail telling them that their pensions that they had worked for, planned on, earned, would not be paid out in full, as was promised to them. But instead, their letters said their pensions would be slashed by 50%, 60%, some as high as 70%. Since then, those retirees have organized. They've organized at home. They've called on their members of Congress. They've come to Washington countless times, all to remind us of the promises that they were made when they earned their pensions, and to fight for a solution to the pending crisis. I have been proud to work side by side with these Wisconsin workers and retirees, and with my colleague, Senator Brown, to introduce the Butch-Lewis Act. This legislation will put failing multi-employer pension plans, including Central States, back on solid ground. And it does so without cutting the pensions that retirees have earned. This is not just good policy for workers and retirees, because putting these pensions back on strong footing would also protect the small businesses that employed them from the threat of closing their doors if these plans are allowed to fail. Compounding this looming crisis is the reality that the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, known as the PBGC, the government's insurance for multi-employer pension plans like Central States, it is on its own path to insolvency by 2025. This week, I reintroduced legislation to help address the financial challenges of the PBGC. The Pension Stability Act would add funding to the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation's multi-employer program by imposing a fee on financial firms convicted of financial crimes. This weekend, I was in Endeavor, Wisconsin, with retirees who meet once a month at the fire station to update one another on our progress here in Washington. I've been to many, many such meetings like that across the state. In the months since the House passed the Butch-Lewis Act, there hasn't been much other progress to speak of. The Senate hasn't taken up the bill. No other proposals have been offered. And all the while, retirees and workers in the Central States Pension Fund continue to doubt their retirement security. Today, I'm asking my colleagues in the Senate to join me to pass my Pension Stability Act and to help generate new revenue to help safeguard the retirement security of millions of Americans. If Washington does not act, workers and retirees face massive cuts to the pensions that they've earned over decades of hard work. I've come to the floor many times to remind this body about the retirees, some of whom stand to lose more than 50% of their pensions. And still, nothing has been done. And so I'm here once again to remind my colleagues that this is about a promise that must be kept. So I ask unanimous consent that the Help Committee be discharged from further consideration of S. 2598 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
The senator for Utah.
Mr. President, reserving the right to object, I thank and commend my friend and distinguished colleague, the senator from Wisconsin, for her work on this effort. I'm not familiar with this legislation. I don't serve on the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. I have friends who do, and I have friends who couldn't be here today, but who have asked me to voice objection on their behalf. And so on behalf of the senior senator from Tennessee, Senator Alexander, I object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator for Wisconsin.
My message to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle today is simple. If you will continue to object to my proposal to help shore up the PBGC and the proposals from me and other Democratic colleagues to put failing multi-employer pensions back on solid ground, then please bring up your own plans. Bring your ideas to the table, and let's work together to solve this pension crisis and protect the retirement security of Americans. Because just objecting to our plans is not an option for the 25,000 workers and retirees that I am representing here today. Doing nothing is not an option. And if we don't act, we will be breaking a promise made to 1.5 million workers and retirees nationwide. Pension promises must be kept. And so once again, I'll say Washington needs to act, and we need to do it now. I yield back.